I suspected that I wasn't the biological child of my parents, so I took their biological samples and went to do a paternity test. It turned out that I really wasn't their biological child. When I got the test result, I was a bit stunned. I decided to buy a pancake to calm my nerves. The stall owner asked me which kind I wanted. I said I wanted the most expensive one. Since I had already spent $3,000 on the paternity test, how could I not afford a pancake? It turned out that I really couldn't afford it. I asked him how much it was. He said it was $130. I was confused. How much? $130. With that deep and magnetic voice of his, how could he say such a shocking thing? Can I return it? I asked. The handsome guy looked at me quietly. He asked a soul-stirring question. You don't have the money. It wasn't that I didn't have the money. I took out a $50 note and 2 coins from my pocket. This is all I have. The handsome guy fell silent again. After a while, he took the $50 note from my hand. My eyes lit up. Was he going to give me a discount because I was so beautiful? But he said, you can give me the rest at school tomorrow. Tomorrow, at school. Who are you? The handsome guy said. Xavier. I was speechless. Xavier, the Waterloo of my life. My lifelong rival. He was the top student who always kept me. The second place. Firmly in second place. Sigh. Life is really a journey of self-cultivation. I silently put on my mask. Okay, thank you, goodbye. Xavier gave a and handed me the pancake. However, looking at the pancake in my hand, I was confused again. What's in it? Is it sweet bean paste? Xavier's hand paused, and he said, it's chocolate sauce. What did I just hear? You added chocolate sauce to the pancake. I looked into the pancake, and strawberries, peaches. What's this? Cookie crumbs. I asked Xavier. Do all top students make pancake like this? Xavier looked at me silently. What did you call it? Pancake, I said. Xavier stretched out his slender index finger and pointed upwards. I'm selling crepes. I felt so wronged. The mom and dad I had called for 17 years weren't my biological parents. I had been eating what I thought was pancake for so many years, but now it turned out to be a crepe. Why, stop crying. I didn't know when Xavier had come up to me. I looked up at him, sniffling. Xavier let out a sigh. Just as he was about to say something, 2 girls walked over. Little brother, make us 2 crepes. Xavier looked at them and said, this is pancake. The 2 girls froze, looking at this strange scene. I couldn't help but laugh. The 2 girls looked at us like we were crazy and then ran away in horror. I sniffled, feeling embarrassed. Sorry. I pointed in the direction the 2 girls had left. I affected your business. Xavier gave a soft laugh. He reached out and pulled out a piece of paper and handed it to me. It's okay. I've already made back my cost with your order today. It really hurt my feelings, bro. Sorry. See you tomorrow. After saying that, I took off running. I went home with the paternity test report. I was the only one at home. Mr. Smith was either on a business trip or at school. Mrs. Smith worked at a research institute and rarely came home once a year. As for my brother Simon, he had already moved out. Nina, you're back. Are you hungry? Dinner will be ready soon. I was stuffed. I almost threw up after taking a bite of that sweet pancake, but as I kept eating, it actually tasted pretty good. Before I knew it, I had finished it. I felt like vomiting at the thought of food. Auntie, you can go home once you're done cooking. I'll eat later. Okay, then I'll leave. The house became quiet. I sat on the sofa in silence, lost in thought. Half an hour later, I dialed Simon's number. Nina, what's wrong? I rarely called him. So he was quite surprised. Big brother, do you have some time? I have something to tell you. Can't you say it over the phone? Wait for me for an hour and a half. I wanted to say it wasn't urgent, but all I said was, okay. The Smith family members are all rational. Their way of doing things is to weigh the pros and cons and make the best choice, so there's no need for me to be polite with them. When they say they'll do something, they'll definitely do it within their ability. I'm so afraid of saying the wrong thing in front of them that I hardly dare to speak. Simon kept his word. An hour and 27 minutes later, he came back. He also brought me my favorite red velvet cake. At the same time, he saw the untouched food on the table. Why haven't you eaten? I ate some snacks earlier. I'm not hungry. Simon nodded and put the cake in the refrigerator. Then you can have it for breakfast tomorrow. Simon sat down in front of me. What happened? He asked. Simon was 7 years older than me. When he was already sensible, I was still a baby. When he was in puberty, I was still playing with mud. With his introverted personality, we weren't very close, but that didn't stop him from being nice to me. I used to take his kindness for granted, but now I felt extremely uncomfortable. I pursed my lips and handed him the paternity test report. Simon took it with a puzzled look. When he saw the content on it, Simon's expression gradually became serious. After a long silence, he asked, "Nina, why did you do a paternity test?" My heart skipped a beat, and I stood up abruptly. "Sorry." Simon looked at me with a complex expression and softened his tone. "I don't blame you. However, under normal circumstances, no one would suddenly do a paternity test for themselves and their parents." Simon was so calm that he was still concerned about this question at this moment. "People often said that I didn't look like a child of the Smith family. And I was just curious." Simon frowned. "I thought you didn't care." I lowered my head and said in a small voice, "It's not that I don't care, I was just curious." Simon didn't say anything and seemed to be thinking about something. I should give him some space. "I'm going back to my room, Nina." He stopped me. "I'll handle this with Mom and Dad. You focus on school and don't worry." "Okay, I understand." I wasn't really worried. Instead, I couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. After washing up, I went to bed and fell asleep soon. It was wonderful to go to bed without having to do test papers for the first time. I woke up the next morning, and Simon had already left. He left me a note saying that he had contacted Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and they would come back as soon as possible. He told me not to worry. When I got to school, I instinctively looked at Xavier's seat. My deskmate put his arm around me. "What's going on? Can't you hold back your resentment towards the top student?" "What resentment? Don't talk nonsense." My deskmate pouted. "I don't know who it was who vowed to crush our top student to the ground." Xavier suddenly walked in, and I quickly covered my deskmate's mouth, facing his confused gaze. I forced a smile. I hoped he didn't hear it, but he asked, "Crushed to the ground?" My deskmate slipped away, and I stood there with a tingling scalp. Xavier didn't ask any more questions. He just raised an eyebrow and prepared to go back to his seat. I called out to him, "Xavier, can I tell you something?" I still owed Xavier $80, but I had no money left. The paternity test earlier had drained all my savings. Although I still had my lucky money, it was for the children of the Smith family. Now that I had no blood relationship with them, it didn't seem right for me to use that money. "Can you introduce me to a part-time job? I'll pay you back as soon as I get my salary." This sounded a bit shameless, but Xavier was the only one among the people I knew who had a part-time job. After a moment of silence, Xavier asked, "What can you do?" "Me? Are you scolding me?" "Xavier, I'm asking a question." "Oh." Xavier introduced the current employment situation to me. Since I was under 18 years old, strictly speaking, I was a child laborer. Coupled with the heavy academic pressure and limited working hours, almost no one was willing to hire a high school student. "So, do you want to make pancake with me?" I covered my face. "Can't we get past this?" Xavier laughed softly. He said that the pancake store, no, the crepe store, belonged to his sister. Since his sister was pregnant, he would go and help out in his free time. "If you want, you can come." "Yes. I do want to, I really do." "By the way, how's the salary calculated?" Xavier said, $10 an hour, and a $5 commission for each crepe sold. "Wow, the adult world is really cruel." I calculated the time. I had evening self-study from Monday to Thursday, so my working hours were only on Friday nights and weekends. If I sold well, I thought I could easily earn $400 a week. I let out a sigh sound. "What's wrong?" Xavier asked. I said, "It really hurts." I felt sorry for that crepe I bought for $130. Mr. and Mrs. Smith came back quickly. When I got back after the evening self-study, they were already at home. Mrs. Smith's eyes were red. She hugged me tightly. My body stiffened slightly, and I wasn't used to it. I was 17 years old, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith were over 50. There was a big generation gap between us. Since we rarely spent time together since I was a child and hardly ever contacted each other, let alone had intimate contact. Mrs. Smith was a bit emotional. "Nina, Mom is sorry for you. I didn't protect you. I didn't know that you were hurt by those idle rumors." "Nina, I'm sorry." I felt a bit embarrassed. Actually, what they said wasn't wrong. "Look, I'm really not a child of the Smith family." As soon as I said that, Mrs. Smith cried even harder. She was always confident, rational, and decisive. This was the first time I saw her so emotional. I turned to Mr. Smith for help with a pleading look. But his expression wasn't any better. He looked really worried. However, he pulled me out of Mrs. Smith's arms. "Stop crying, you're scaring the child. It wasn't that serious." But Mrs. Smith stopped crying. Mr. Smith looked at me and said cautiously, "Nina, we want to take you to do another paternity test tomorrow. Is that okay?" I nodded and agreed. No problem. I could understand their caution. At the same time, I made a request. "I want to live on campus." "No," the three of them said it in unison. And I was a bit scared. Simon came to his senses first. He softened his tone and asked me, "Why do you suddenly want to live on campus?" Well, it was obvious, wasn't it? I'm not a child of the Smith family. When you find your real child, he probably won't want to see me. The cuckoo that occupied the magpie's nest. Simon's face darkened. Mrs. Smith covered her face and cried again. I stood there stiffly, not knowing what I had said wrong. Mr. Smith let out a sigh and said, "Nina, we're not in a hurry. We'll take our time, at least wait until we get the test results." Okay, I had no objections. I was just worried that they would feel uncomfortable, so I nodded and agreed. "Then I'll go back to my room." "Nina," Mrs. Smith was about to say something, but Mr. Smith stopped her. He said, "Get some rest and don't stay up late." The next day, they asked for half a day's leave from school on my behalf, and then Simon drove us to the hospital. It was a really high-end hospital. Much better than the place where I had the paternity test. It seemed that they really cared. After taking the blood samples, Mr. and Mrs. Smith personally supervised the testing. Simon poured me a cup of hot water. "Thank you," I said. Simon ruffled my hair and said sadly, "Don't you call me big brother anymore." I pursed my lips, not knowing what to say. I was really headache about how to address them, not finding a suitable way. I could only try to avoid it. Fortunately, a phone call saved me. "Sit here obediently, I'm going to answer the phone," I said. I nodded quickly. Just as I was staring at the table in boredom, a doctor walked over. "Hey, whose child are you?" he asked. The way he asked made it seem like everyone here was related. I said, "Hello, my name is Nina Smith." "Smith," he said, suddenly realizing, "the child of Professor Smith and Dr. Jenny." For now," I said. The doctor was taken aback. "It either is or isn't. What do you mean by, for now? What kind of answer is that?" I touched my nose and smiled. There was no way to explain it. Saying too much would be oversharing, but this doctor was a chatterbox, and he didn't have a good sense of when to stop talking. I had clearly shown that I didn't want to communicate, but he still pulled me into a conversation that went all over the place. There was nothing I could do, since he was an elder and he was talking to me. I couldn't not respond. Finally, we talked about my studies. When he heard that I had always been second in my class, he gave me a thumbs up. I smiled and shook my head. "I'm not that great. I had to work really hard just to get second place." "That's still very good," he said. "It was good enough in other families, but in the Smith family, I'm not that great," I said. The doctor softened his voice. "You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself. Everyone is an individual. Just be yourself." I thanked him with a smile. He said, "If you don't want to smile, don't force it. No one is forcing you." I was stunned and looked at him in confusion. Then he suddenly stood up. "Oh, I forgot the time while chatting with you. I have to go to the outpatient department." He came in a hurry and left just as quickly. I finally let out a sigh of relief. The blood samples were being compared, but it would take 2 days for the results to come out. "Nina, do you want to go back and rest?" Mrs. Smith looked at me expectantly, to be honest. Her enthusiasm was a bit overwhelming. "No, I'm going back to school." I had been feeling sleepy these 2 days. Maybe I had been too indulgent. I had been so tense before, and once I relaxed, I just wanted to slack off. After I fell asleep in class again, my desk mate decided to have a heart-to-heart with me. She asked me, "What's your attitude?" I was confused. "What's wrong with me?" She looked at me in disappointment. "Aren't you going to catch up with the top student? You weren't like this before. Where's your fighting spirit? Where's your passion? Nina, why have you fallen?" No, this isn't falling. I just had an epiphany," I said. "What kind of epiphany?" she asked. "I realized that the top student is someone to look up to, not someone to surpass. We can't blaspheme the God." My desk mate looked at me in horror. Behind me, I had a bad feeling. When I slowly turned around, Xavier was looking at me with a complicated expression. That look, as if he wanted to say something but held back. There was enough content in that look to write an 800-word essay, and I was so embarrassed, to be honest. without the constraint of trying to be first. I had been having a good time at school, but at home, it was a bit nerve-wracking. They fired the cooking aunt, and Mrs. Smith started cooking herself. Even scientists have their weaknesses. These 2 days, they got up early to make me breakfast, and then Simon sent me to school. At noon, Mr. Smith picked me up for lunch. When I got home in the evening, there was even a late-night snack. This meticulous care was a bit suffocating. Mrs. Smith looked at me worriedly. Nina, is my cooking not good? Why have you been eating less? Should we hire the aunt again? Was I eating less? I didn't notice, I said. I've always eaten very little. I had always had very low requirements for food. As long as I wasn't hungry, it was fine. I didn't care if it tasted good or how much I ate, but the way they looked at me was full of pity. I felt my scalp tingle and was extremely uncomfortable. I brought up the idea of living on campus again. This time, they didn't strongly object. Just said they would think about it. Today was the day the results came out, although I already knew the answer. I was still a bit nervous. This nervousness made me bite my fingers. When Mrs. Smith pulled my fingers out, they were already bleeding. Seeing that she was about to cry, I quickly comforted her. It's okay, it's just a scratch. Before, every time I had an exam, I bit my fingers even harder. She probably noticed, because there were many old scars on my fingers. Mrs. Smith's eyes filled with tears, and she looked at me helplessly. I quickly averted my gaze. Simon brought back the test results. Mr. Smith quickly took it and opened it. They passed it around one by one, and finally, it was in my hands. Looking at the final result, I secretly let out a sigh of relief. Sure enough, I wasn't a child of the Smith family. The next step was to find the real child of the Smith family and uncover the truth of what happened. Mr. Smith talked to me about my idea of living on campus. He hoped that I would continue to live at home. Nina, even if there was a mistake, there's no need to change it back, he said. I looked at him in surprise. Why would he think that? But then I thought about it and understood. When you find that child, you'll probably want to change things, I said. Nina, why do you think like that? Mr. Smith looked at me sadly. I said, the children of the Smith family are definitely very excellent. Nina, you're also very good, he said. I shook my head. I'm not. I don't have the excellent genes of the Smith family. I'm just an ordinary person. Nina, we're sorry for you. We didn't take good care of you, they said more than once. I said, no, it's not your fault, it's my problem. Look, Simon, big brother grew up in this family environment and he's very excellent, so, it's not a problem of upbringing, it's a fundamental issue. In the end, I still couldn't move to the dormitory, because Mr. Smith said that Mrs. Smith wasn't in a good state, and at least until they found the child. He hoped that I wouldn't leave. Otherwise he was afraid that Mrs. Smith would break down. I already felt guilty towards them, so I finally compromised. I thought the process of finding the child would go smoothly, but by Friday, 3 days had passed, and there was still no news. In the morning, when I went to school, I asked Simon. Still no clues. He hummed. 17 years ago, the internet wasn't widely used. Many records were written, and some were even lost. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. I couldn't hold it in and took out my phone to show him a photo. I said, check him out. Maybe he's the child of the Smith family. Simon was stunned. Who is he? Xavier, the top student in our school. He's very good as the people in the Smith family, I said. Simon frowned and looked at me. Nina, the people in the Smith family aren't just about being excellent, without those unsubstantiated titles. We're all just ordinary people, but those titles weren't unsubstantiated. And they couldn't be ignored. Nina, being the most excellent isn't the only criterion for being a child of the Smith family, he said. I was speechless. Did he think I was obsessed? I quickly shook my head. It's not just because he's excellent. He was born on the same day as me. Simon opened his mouth to say something. I interrupted him and pointed to another person in the photo. She was Xavier's sister. Yesterday, she came to school to bring Xavier food, and I happened to see her. She was a gentle-looking woman with a big belly. When she smiled, it was like a warm spring breeze. Even Xavier, who always acted so arrogant, was very obedient in front of her. Look at her, she has a dimple when she smiles, just like me, I said. Dimples are a dominant trait. The people in the Smith family don't have dimples, Simon said with a complicated look, facing my eager gaze. He finally nodded. I'll investigate. I was really looking forward to it. Today, I was starting my part-time job. I thought I could get Xavier's biological sample. Finally, school was over, everyone couldn't wait to go home. Xavier knocked on my desk, and I immediately followed him. He got on his bike and said, "Get on." Well, I hesitated. Xavier noticed. "Then I'll go first. You can take a car," he said. When I heard that, I quickly got on the bike. I had no choice. Taking a car cost money. And even a small amount of money could stump a hero. I sat stiffly on the back of the bike. The bike moved slowly. I was tense all over. I don't know how long it took, but Xavier suddenly stopped. He sighed and stuffed the hem of his clothes into my hand. I wanted to resist, but he said in a firm tone, "Hold on tight. I'll deduct your salary if we're late." Damn capitalist. But after this little episode, I finally relaxed. The gentle wind blew, and I couldn't help but take a deep breath. Even the air felt free. It wasn't long before we arrived at the store. Xavier brought me a work uniform and told me to change. Then he showed me how to do things while he was operating. It seemed simple. I was eager to try, but Xavier stuffed a made crepe into my hand. "Go and eat it," he said. I remembered my duty. "I'm here to work." Xavier took out a list and put it in front of me. "Your job today is to memorize all the types and prices," he said. Well, I thought I was getting a physical job. Seeing my reluctance, Xavier raised an eyebrow. "This shouldn't be difficult for you, right?" I sighed. I just want to give my brain a rest recently. Although I said that, I still had to do the work. I ate a crepe and drank a cup of milk. I memorized the content on the list while helping Xavier. Time passed before I knew it. When Xavier said it was time to close the store, I suddenly realized that I had forgotten the important thing. I was supposed to collect Xavier's biological sample. I quickly poured a cup of water with a paper cup and handed it to Xavier. Xavier looked at me in confusion. "I'm not thirsty," he said. "Just drink a little. It'll moisten your throat," I said. Xavier narrowed his eyes. "You're being overly nice for no reason. What do you want?" he asked. I was speechless. "Can't I please my boss?" I said. Xavier snorted and took the cup to drink. "Is that okay now?" he asked. Yes, it was more than okay, and to my even greater surprise, Xavier gave me money. It was a brand new $100 bill, and the smell of the ink was simply fascinating. "Is this a lot?" I asked. Xavier said, "We'll split the commission from the sales in half." I smiled so much that my eyes disappeared. "Is that okay?" I said. "Do you want to give it back to me?" he asked. I quickly put the money in my pocket. "Thank you, boss." While Xavier was packing things up, I quietly picked up the paper cup, put it in a sealed bag, and stuffed it into my school bag. Phew, it felt like I was doing something bad. Simon was waiting for me in the parking lot. When I arrived, he was still dealing with some documents. "You didn't have to pick me up. I could have gone home by myself," I said. Simon said, "It's too late. We're worried about you being alone." I felt suffocated again. "I used to be alone. You're putting a lot of pressure on me like this," I said. Simon fell silent. After a long time, he said softly, "I understand." We went home in silence. Before entering the house, I gave Simon Xavier's biological sample. Mr. and Mrs. Smith were in the living room. When they saw us, they immediately stood up. "Nina, are you hungry? Wash your hands first. Mom will heat up the food," Mrs. Smith said. "No, I'm not hungry," I said. Mrs. Smith was about to say something, but Simon interrupted her. "Mom, Nina is tired. Let her go upstairs and rest," he said. I let out a sigh of relief and smiled gratefully at Simon. Everything was about to be settled. It was so good. I made an appointment with Xavier to meet at the store at 9 in the morning. When I went downstairs, Mrs. Smith wasn't there, and Simon had gone to the company. Mr. Smith said he was going to school and would give me a ride on the way. I didn't refuse. If I refused again, I would seem ungrateful. Since it was the weekend, there were a lot of people in the store, but I was a bit distracted. When I almost burned myself again, Xavier let out a helpless sigh. He turned me around and pushed me aside. "Sit there and take a rest," he said. I felt a bit embarrassed. I drank a glass of water to calm myself down and then got up to work again. After we finished the busy period, Xavier asked, "What's wrong?" I touched my nose, not knowing how to start. I couldn't very well say that I was concerned about the paternity test results between my parents and you. If there's some misunderstanding between us, will you fire me?" Xavier didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Is that all? Will you or won't you?" "No. Is that okay?" When I heard that, my eyes lit up. "Then write me a guarantee." Xavier was speechless and rolled his eyes gracefully. I took out a piece of paper and a pen on my own. Are you serious? Of course. Seeing that I was insistent, Xavier was helpless. He wrote, I, Xavier, hereby guarantee that no matter what misunderstanding there is between me and classmate Nina, I will not fire classmate Nina. Is that okay? I nodded happily and almost wanted to kiss the piece of paper. The day passed busily. When we got off work, Xavier gave me $200 bills and some small change. I finally returned the $80 to him openly. Xavier laughed and said, using my money to pay me back. I said confidently, it's my money now. Fine, it's yours. Simon came to pick me up again, but this time I didn't resist, because I knew the results were out. The results showed that Xavier was indeed a child of the Smith family. For a moment, I felt a sense of relief as expected, but also a sense of loss as expected. The atmosphere in the Smith family was a bit solemn. It was as if they had encountered the most inexplicable problem in their lives. Finally, Simon spoke. Nina, what are your plans? I thought for a while and brought up the request to live on campus again. As for other things, I hadn't thought about them. Whether they wanted to recognize Xavier or not was their business, and now that the college entrance examination was approaching, blindly disrupting the status quo might not be a good thing. Do you want to go back to the Xavier family? Simon asked. I shook my head. Why? If it were two girls who were switched by mistake, it could be an accident, but a boy and a girl. There's a high chance that their family values boys over girls, and Xavier is so excellent, they might not want to recognize me. Don't have too high expectations of anyone or anything. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. This was my personal experience over the years. Now I actually think it's quite good to be alone, not caring about other people's opinions or the gains and losses of anything. Nina. Simon touched my head. I will investigate this matter clearly. Don't think too much about it. As for your request to live on campus, I don't agree. Simon said the harshest words in the gentlest tone. For a moment, I suspected that I had heard him wrong. Why, this time, Mr. Smith spoke. Nina, even if there's no blood relationship, you're still a child of the Smith family. We care about you as a person. Mrs. Smith also took my hand. Nina, my work can't be delayed, and I'll be leaving in a while, just to put my mind at ease. Okay, in the end. I couldn't say no. Now it seemed that everything had been settled, but it wasn't what I had thought. I was a bit at a loss. The following week passed in an unexpectedly peaceful way. I seemed to have found a way to get along peacefully with the Smith family. They were no longer overly cautious around me. It was really nice. With this relaxation, my study also became a lot easier. My desk mate didn't understand. Did you get some of the top students good luck? I thought about it and thought it made sense. Then I'll get more of it in the future. Cut. What a character. In the blink of an eye, the weekend arrived. Mrs. Smith's plane ticket was for Sunday afternoon. On Saturday night, she came to my room holding a pillow. Nina, can I sleep with you? My heart skipped a beat. In my memory, I had never slept in the same bed as Mrs. Smith. When she suddenly made this request, I instinctively wanted to refuse, but looking at her expectant eyes, I couldn't say it. In the end, I moved aside and made half of the bed available for her. We didn't have much to talk about, just chatting a few fragmented words. I don't even remember when I fell asleep. I only remember that there was a particularly warm embrace that held me. I originally wanted to see Mrs. Smith off, but she said there was no need. Ignoring the reluctance in her eyes, I went to the store, and to my surprise, I met Xavier's sister in the store. I was a bit nervous when I saw her. When I saw her pregnant belly, I was even more at a loss. Xavier's sister was giggling because of me. Ouch. Xavier, where did you pick up this little treasure? She's much more interesting than you. Xavier frowned. Don't scare her. Xavier's sister was unhappy. What do you mean? Am I that scary? I quickly waved my hands. No, I'm just afraid of bumping into you. It's okay. Xavier's sister took my hand and put it on her belly. The touch under my hand made my muscles tense up. Suddenly, something pushed against my hand. That moment made my scalp tingle. Xavier's sister let out a surprised, "Ah, it seems that the little one really likes you." I couldn't help but widen my eyes. Really? But Xavier interrupted the warm atmosphere. He said, "It's just a normal fetal movement. Don't overinterpret it." Xavier's sister looked speechless. Xavier, why are you so unlovable? Xavier's sister was a talkative person. She sat there, watching us work and chatting with me. She said she didn't do well in school and started working early. For this reason, Xavier's father chased her for 3 blocks with a stick. Xavier raised his eyebrows. Don't be fooled by her appearance. She used to be a tough one. When Xavier's sister heard this, she kicked him. You have such a sharp tongue. Xavier's sister said that the family opened this store for her because she really didn't want to study. Thinking of something, Xavier's sister laughed again. By the way, I used Xavier's money for his future wife to open this store. Xavier, aren't you afraid that I'll lose all your money for your future wife? Xavier was helpless. I'll earn it myself. And Dad said it was for my future coffin, not for my future wife. Don't distort the truth. Just then, Xavier's sister answered a phone call. It was from Xavier's mother, and she put it on speakerphone. Where have you been? Come back and have some soup quickly, Xavier's sister said. I'm checking the store. Are you free? Xavier is there, isn't he? Get back here now. I'll go back and have the soup with Xavier. He's a boy. What soup does he need? Judy, don't make me beat you. Xavier's sister hung up the phone helplessly. Okay, you guys keep working. I'm going back to enjoy my mother's greasy love. This way of getting along among relatives was something I had never seen before. In the Smith family, there was no intimacy, no warmth, everything was rigid and rational. It was the first time I had seen the Xavier family like this, and I was a bit stunned. Xavier asked me, "What's wrong? Were you scared?" I shook my head. After a while, I asked him, "Do your family treat you well?" Xavier said, "They're very good to me. They won't even let you have the soup." I muttered. Xavier was taken aback, and then he tapped my forehead. "What are you thinking? Those soups are for pregnant women to nourish their bodies. What would it be like for me to drink them?" He tilted his head and looked at me, smiling wickedly. "Why, do you feel sorry for me?" I felt a rush of heat on my face because of his gaze and blushed immediately. I glared at him and said angrily, "No." Xavier let out a regretful sigh. "Ah, how pitiful. No one feels sorry for me even though I can't have the soup." Xavier, was he possessed? Why was he being so improper? In the afternoon, Xavier and I were having a boxed meal. Suddenly, I received a call from a junior high school classmate. We lived in the same neighborhood, but we hadn't been in touch for a long time. I was wondering why she called me when I heard her panicked voice. "Nina, where are you? Your mother is fighting with someone." I was stunned for a moment. My mother, fighting. These 2 words together were so absurd. My old classmate was a kind person. Not only did she tip me off, but she also gave me a live broadcast of the situation. Xavier accompanied me to rush home. In the car, I kept looking at the video on my phone. I knew the woman who was arguing with Mrs. Smith. She had whispered about me to others before. She said I looked alluring and was like a vixen. In the Smith family, I was just like a vase, she said. She has no real ability. I bet she can only seduce people with her looks in the future. She also told her child not to play with me, saying that she was afraid I would lead her child astray, and in the video, she kept repeating these words. "Am I wrong? Isn't your little one alluring? She doesn't look like a child of the Smith family at all. I kindly reminded you, and you hit me." Mrs. Smith was never good at arguing, and she didn't have any fighting ability, but at this moment, it was as if she had unlocked some special power. She grabbed the woman's hair and shouted, "How dare you talk about my child? I'll beat you up. Why do you say bad things about our Nina? Our Nina is the best child." At the end, there was a sob in her voice. My heart felt a bit bitter. I couldn't help but put my finger in my mouth. Xavier pulled my hand away. "Don't bite. If you feel bad, pinch me." In the middle, Simon called, "Nina, I'm on my way back. Big brother will take care of it, don't worry." After hanging up the phone, I realized that Xavier had been holding my hand. I couldn't help but ask him, "Am I really useless? I had shamed my family." Xavier said, "No, you're the most amazing girl I've ever met." I pulled the corners of my mouth. "It's not very convincing coming from the top student in our grade." "Really?" Xavier looked at me seriously. He said, "I've seen your math test paper from the high school entrance examination. You were the only one who could solve the last sub-question of the last question. Your thinking is very innovative, something I've never thought of. I was really looking forward to meeting you at that time. Then when you met me, were you disappointed?" Xavier shook his head. "Nina, you're very good. You're better than everyone. You just put too much pressure on yourself." When Xavier and I arrived, the crowd had already dispersed. Mrs. Smith was crouching on the ground, crying uncontrollably. She was shaking all over from crying. Mr. Smith stood beside her, at a loss. Simon was on the phone, and from his tone, it seemed he was talking to a lawyer. Mom, I opened my mouth and finally called out. Mrs. Smith looked up at me abruptly. She stood up in a hurry and smiled at me while wiping her tears. Nina, you're back. Are you hungry? Mom will cook for you. I shook my head. I came to see you off at the airport. Your flight will be delayed soon. Mrs. Smith shook her head blankly. Mom won't leave. Nina, is it okay if Mom doesn't leave? Such childlike words actually came out of Mrs. Smith's mouth. I took her hand. We can have video calls. I have a lot of questions I don't know how to solve. Can you teach me? Mr. Smith stepped forward and let out a sigh. Let's go. Don't make the child worry. Suddenly, I thought of Xavier behind me. I was a bit flustered for a moment. He is Xavier. This didn't seem right. I was just about to make up for it when Xavier stepped forward in time. Uncle and Aunt, hello, I'm Nina's classmate. My name is Xavier. Mr. and Mrs. Smith were stunned for a moment. Mrs. Smith lowered her head and squeezed my hand tightly. Mr. Smith smiled at Xavier. Thank you for accompanying Nina back. In the end, we sent Mrs. Smith to the plane. On the way back, Simon said, I will hold them accountable, Nina. I won't let anyone who slandered you go. I turned my head and looked out the window, not answering. I was at a loss, more at a loss than ever. I couldn't fall asleep that night. The college entrance examination is coming up. The entire senior grade is filled with a tense atmosphere. I set aside a little time every night to have a video call with Mrs. Smith. Sometimes we just chat about daily matters. Sometimes I ask her some questions about schoolwork. Mrs. Smith is very busy. Sometimes when we're on the video call, someone suddenly appears and asks her to look at some data. Every time that happens, Mrs. Smith looks at me with a guilty expression. I always smile and tell her, it doesn't matter, but after hanging up the video call, I feel empty inside. This feeling of emptiness gets stronger day by day. It's getting harder and harder for me to fall asleep, and I'm eating less and less. Xavier was the first to notice that something was wrong with me. Nina, what on earth is wrong with you recently? I press my dry lips together. Nothing. He looks at me with disbelief. I smile and say, the mock exam is coming up, and I'm a bit nervous. Xavier helplessly twitches the corners of his mouth. Don't worry, you'll be fine, I'll be fine. That's what I tell myself. But at the mock exam venue, I fainted. I used to insist on finishing the exam no matter how nervous I was. But this time, looking at the dense text on the test paper, I just felt cold sweat breaking out. My mind went blank, and I lost consciousness. I locked myself in the room for 2 days. Mrs. Smith came back. Mr. Smith and Simon were also there. They tried to persuade and comfort me. I know they're worried about me. I know I shouldn't be willful, but I can't help it. My fingers are all bloody from biting, but I don't feel any pain. Why is it still not working? Why, even after all I've done, is it still not working, in the end? Simon broke open the door and took me to the hospital. Xavier came to see me. He didn't say any high-sounding words to me. He just asked me, my dad bought lamb chops today. Do you want to come to my house for dinner? I agreed. The Xavier family's house was lively. Xavier's father was cheerfully picking vegetables. Xavier's mother was frying something. Xavier's sister was standing by and stealing some food. Xavier's mother couldn't stand it and slapped her. All you do is eat. Look at how fat you've become. Xavier's sister wasn't happy. Dad, look at Mom. She hit me again. Won't you do something about your wife? Xavier's father laughed it off. Just have one more. That's it. There will be guests later. You're just spoiling her. She's been spoiled by you. Xavier's sister provocatively said. What? Are you jealous? Xavier's mother gave a cold snort. Are you asking for a beating? Xavier's sister was the first to see me. Ah, the little classmate is here. Xavier's mother looked pleasantly surprised. She wiped her hands on her apron and then took my hand. You're so pretty. You're too thin. Try Auntie's cooking later. I'm sure you'll want more. Maybe their smiles were so warm that I couldn't help but smile too. At the dinner table, Xavier's mother and sister kept putting food on my plate, and most of the food they put on my plate was stolen by Xavier. Xavier's mother angrily slapped the table. Are you starving? Isn't there any food on the table? Xavier looked up at the sky. She can't eat that much, and I'm almost stuffed. Can you guys stop? I felt a bit embarrassed. I really couldn't eat much. I felt like I was letting down their kindness. Xavier's mother quickly said, okay, I won't put any more food for you. Eat whatever you like. make yourself at home. I ate quite a bit during this meal, although in their eyes, it seemed like I didn't eat much. I was already full to the brim before I left. Xavier's mother told me to come again next time. I was very happy. Xavier said, "I'll walk you down." Xavier's mother quickly waved her hand. Go on, go on." Xavier accompanied me as we walked under the streetlights. The street view was familiar. Xavier pointed to a nearby stall and said, "My parents sell cake here. If you want some, you can come and buy them." I nodded. "I know." Xavier was a bit surprised. I pointed across the street. "Once when I was going home, I saw your family closing the stall there. You were all bickered, quarreled playfully, and made a ruckus, but it seemed that everyone was really happy." Looking at Xavier, I said, "I really want to steal your family away." Xavier laughed when he heard my words. They would definitely be happy about that. Simon was waiting for me by the roadside. Before I got in the car, Xavier stopped me and said, "Nina, don't be sad. I can give my family to you." I looked at Simon in the car. "I have a family." Xavier was a bit anxious. "That's not what I meant." I looked at him in confusion. He opened his mouth but finally said dejectedly, "Forget it. I'll tell you after the college entrance examination." The college entrance examination? I might not have the chance to know. Xavier, goodbye, goodbye. The car slowly drove away. "Big brother," I suddenly called out, and Simon seemed a bit startled. What's wrong?" I felt his voice was a bit hoarse. I said, "I want to take a leave of absence from school. Can you find a psychologist for me? I'm sick." I've always known that. My illness stems from being a child of the Smith family and not being good enough. My dad and mom are very busy, and so is my brother. I wish someone could spend more time with me, but they don't have the time. I'm not excellent. They once had expectations of me, but I let them down, so they gave up on me. They said, "It's okay, being ordinary is not so bad." But I don't feel good about it. Since I was a child, people often asked, "Whose child is this?" "A child of the Smith family." "A child of the Smith family?" I can't tell. At first, it was just that people couldn't tell. Later, more and more people started to question whether I was really a child of the Smith family. I'm too ordinary. I tried my best to prove that I deserved the surname Smith, but I failed. I was the top scorer in the high school entrance examination, but in high school, I couldn't even get the first place. I'm so failed. I tried again and again, but failed again and again. It's getting more and more difficult, and I feel more and more powerless. I started to be afraid of exams and studying. They're like a flood and a beast to me, but I have to overcome my fear and charge forward. Countless times I locked myself in the room and cried my eyes out. I called my mom, but the answer I always got was, "Nina, mom is busy. I'll call you back later." Okay, later. Later could be a month or even half a year. I suddenly thought, it would be great if I wasn't a child of the Smith family. Yes, I'm not a child of the Smith family. I want to be a child of the Xavier family. I want someone to talk to me with a smile. I hope that when mom scolds me, there is warmth in her words. I long for that kind of liveliness and noise. I had a paternity test with Hope, but the test result told me that I am a child of the Smith family. I can't accept this result. At that moment, it was as if someone else was controlling my body. He manipulated me to change the test result. Sigh, this is right. I'm not a child of the Smith family. I deceived myself, but I can't deceive others. I know they're acting with me. I know that the doctor who suddenly appeared and chatted with me is a psychologist. I just pretend that I don't know anything. That feeling is so good. I'm not a child of the Smith family. I don't have to be responsible for the Smith surname anymore. I even pushed Xavier towards them. I won't steal Xavier's family. I just want to be free. But false things are false after all. The dreamy bubble will burst one day. When I saw mom fighting with others while crying, I was really sad. You see, even if I pretend that I'm not a child of the Smith family, I still bring shame to them. How hateful I am. I couldn't even enter the exam room. Nina, you're the most failed person in the world. But they love me. What should I do? Mom is not good at expressing herself. She can only tell me over and over again that she loves me. Dad talks even less. But he bandaged my wound with red eyes and coaxed me softly. "Nina, it doesn't hurt. Nina, be good." And my brother, he's seeking justice for me. Xavier invited me to his house for dinner. I went. I really liked his family. But when I was sitting there eating, I missed my dad and mom. Even if I don't want them, they still want me, right? I suddenly don't want to resist desperately anymore. "Big brother, I want to take a leave of absence from school. Please find a psychologist for me. Xavier's perspective. When Nina asked me if I regretted seeing her, actually, what I wanted to say was, I don't regret it. All I feel is pitiful, in my heart. Nina should be free and unrestrained, but in reality, she's as tense as a fully drawn bow, ready to fight at any moment. I don't know why she's like this, but I know it's very dangerous to be like this all the time. I want to talk to her, but she ignores me. Nina probably dislikes me a bit. She always looks at me with caution. It's as if I'll hurt her. She makes me hesitant. Her condition is getting worse. Her face is getting paler. Her figure is getting thinner. And she's becoming more and more crazy about studying. I feel that she might break down at any moment. Later, she cried in front of me. Instead, I felt relieved. It's good that she let out her emotions. From that day on, she seemed to have really changed. She even dozed off in class. This side of her makes her seem alive. Later, she went to my sister's store to help. She's very smart and learns things quickly. She's curious. Her eyes are full of exploration when she looks at things. This Nina is like a little child, and I think she should be like this. But this change came quickly and also left quickly. Her mood became low again. She immersed herself in her own world once more. At the same time, she drew a clear line with me again. I'm very worried. I don't know what to do. When I heard that she fainted in the exam room, I was scared. I'm afraid that she'll break down. And she really did break down. When I saw her again, her small body was curled up on the hospital bed. She's so thin, just skin and bones. I'm so sad, so I want to take her to have a meal. To hell with studying, to hell with grades. I just want her to eat well. Later, she took a leave of absence from school. I went to see her before the college entrance examination. She's still very thin. Can't they give her more food? But she seemed much more relaxed. I'll wait for you for a year. Let's go to the same university. Okay, then I'll chase you, and I'll give you my family, including myself. Nina tilted her head and looked at me. She said softly, what if I can't get into that university? I thought for a moment and said, then tell me which school you'll go to, and I'll go to you. Nina smiled. Her eyes curved. She put her hand into my palm. She said, okay. In an instant, my world bloomed. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section.